of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and, of course, now on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe onto your podcast apps as well on the YouTube page. Hit the notification button so you know when we drop a new video. One of the episodes of the year starting right now, the MLB preview, the Mets preview, the Yankees preview. So, of course, here with me today, the designated hitters. I want to who's the old Yankees announcer with the PA guy?
Bob Shepard.
Bob Shepard.
I wish I could do a good Bob Shepard impersonation. Now batting, Alec Argento.
You did it wrong already. You got to do the number first, and then you repeat the number.
You don't have a number.
Yeah, dude. Number one.
Poo poo pee pee.
What's up, Alex?
And also with us, another designated. Our lineup has 2 DHs. I don't know what that makes me, but Andrew Calagna is here as well. What's up, brother?
How's it going? I'm ready to discuss the New York teams that's on everybody's mind today. The New York Rangers. You know, are they? Can they pull off getting into the top of the Metropolitan Division? They're only 2 points behind the Carolina Hurricanes with great goal work by Shesterkin. Kreider continued to lead the league in goals. It's looking great for the Rangers, and I'm ready to break it down.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Wait,
that
dropped that?
That was I.
Okay.
Who else dropped on the show, Alec? You like that's a new one? I'll play it again for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That's Nikola Jokic in a real post-game interview. Anyway, is that guy's name Tadurkin? Like the turkey name?
He's going to win the Vensma trophy for best goalie in the league.
100%. The Vensma trophy, of course. Yes, of course.
The Vens something trophy. Yes.
That's fantastic. I'm proud of Tadurkin. And now on to baseball. On to baseball stuff. That's fantastic. Really, it's baseball season. This episode is dropping on Wednesday, April 6th. That's actual opening day. A fantastic day to drop this episode because we're doing Mets and Yankees specifically. They open on Thursday the 7th. So you have a full 48 hours almost. Not really. The Yankees play at 1 o'clock. But you have a lot of time to listen to this before day one. Get you picks on the overs and the unders. Perhaps a little taste on some MVP odds, some Cy Youngs. We're going to touch on all that. The hitting, the pitching, the defense, the trade possibilities, the whole nine will be covered for both teams here. And we had a quick discussion before we started recording. And I think that meant we're going to start with the Mets. Now, Alec, I want to ask you, Andrew and I, if you haven't been listening to us for 4 years now, full baseball seasons of podcasts here, Andrew and I tend to be a little bit easier on the Mets. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a little bit easier on both teams. I think I'm also easier on the Yankees, if that makes – I don't know what that makes me.
You're easy on the eyes, too, for saying it.
Maybe. Anyways.
Hey.
You're a little bit more fair and then also a little bit more rude about the Mets. And sometimes you end up being more right, which hurts my feelings. So we decided to talk Mets first. Do you think that's a fair assessment? Do you think there's good reason behind the Mets excitement and the reason that New York has a little buzz about the Mets and Yankees? I'd say equally this year. I don't think it's that BS line that the Mets are taking the town. But what do you feel about that?
I don't like that I've been termed rude about the Mets. I'm just realistic about the Mets because that's what they do every year. I actually don't think that the sentiment is what you just described anymore. I think it's full on panic mode with their pitching staff and the injuries and everything like that. I think that any real Mets fan would be like, yeah, oh no, this is over. It's over before it even began. So
the real Mets fans were saying that before the injuries even happened. You know, I'm pretty sure I said on this podcast with you guys recently, maybe it was just Andrew. I was like, well, DeGrom will be injured, then he'll come back, and then Scherzer will get injured, and then we won't hit that whole time, and then we'll hit when they're both out. Like, it's just, that's how it goes in Queens, right? Like, they hit, they can't pitch. They pitch, they can't hit. It's classic. It sucks. However, Vegas, on the flip side, and, they're not the be-all, end-all when it comes to over-unders for season totals in baseball because it's a long season. The difference between 90.5 and 92.5 is bigger than it really feels probably in their eyes. They're still projected to be a top tier team in the NL East, pretty much tied for the over-under sake with the Braves good NL East odds, high World Series odds. Some of that has to do with the Cohen factor, the New York factor, but Vegas hasn't hit the panic button like New York fans have. So, Drew, before we start getting into the specifics of, pitching staffs and hitters and whatnot, where's your hand with the panic button for Mets fans?
I mean, it really rests with Jacob
Is it already?
deGrom. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's been hit yet, but it's very close to that button. If Jacob deGrom misses more than like half the season, which looks like is going to, like, such a huge blow. Like, you're really going into the season looking forward to him having a full, Cy Young season, and now, before games even played, he's not going to be picking up a ball until end of May, beginning of June, and then he's got to ramp back up again. So you're probably not going to see him until maybe a little bit before the All-Star break. So and that's just one player. The Mets built a good amount of depth. So I'm not on full on panic mode if I'm the Mets, but it's inching close to that button.
If I may, not only is Jacob deGrom out, you have your entire pitching staff with lingering injuries. So you have now a hamstring injury with Max Scherzer, who's 50,000 years old at this point. He's a fossil. And then you have Taijuan Walker too, who is he's having inflammation in his knee again that he had surgery on before. Carlos Carrasco is a husk of a human being. I mean, your top 4 starters, they're going to be injured the entire year to some degree, right? Even if they play through it, hamstring injuries don't go away. Sore knees from a surgery don't go away. And then again, Carrasco is consistently on the IL. So I'm happy to. I mean, I'm not happy to say it, but like the Mets they're not in good shape with their pitching staff right now. And then additionally, their offense, I think people made a huge deal about their offensive upgrades that they had this year. I mean, I said it in the last podcast, but like, Francisco Lindor had 2 crappy years in a row. Mark Canha's a good player. He's not, the saving force of this team. I think in that division, they're in trouble because that division all around them just got better, including the Marlins. The Marlins are not a bad team on paper. Like, they're going to steal wins from you. They're a good young team that's going to grow, and they're not going to be an easy, and especially with the Mets' history against the Marlins, like, they're not going to be easy to beat. And then you have the Phillies, who have one of the best offenses in all of baseball, and a decent pitching staff. And then you have the returning world champions and the Braves, who got better in the offseason. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk, and I don't expect the Mets to to win the division by any stretch of the imagination.
Which is crazy because, like, last podcast we were all on, and I, looking into before all these injuries even started to happen, I was just like, looking at the moves that they made and the amount of money that they spent. If they don't win the division, that's going to be such a failure on the Mets' part. Like, you have to, if you go all in and you sign Max Scherzer to 2 years and $90 million, like, you have to go out and win. I guess the only positive, coming from that is that knowing that ownership and the front office will go out and probably make some more trades and get some more, pitching depth if they really need to. Because there was that rumor going about over the weekend that the Mets were close to acquiring who's the Padres pitcher,
Chris Paddock
and Eric Hosmer for Dom Smith. So I don't really understand that trade because I have no idea where Hosmer would go unless they would just, take him and release him. But because, the Mets already have a couple of first baseman type. So I don't know.
Right. Like, if Dom Smith can't find the field, why is Eric Hosmer finding the field? I guess that trade's about Paddock. He had a weird year last year as well. He wasn't very good, right? After having the incredibly strong rookie season start where it was like him versus Alonso was like a big deal. And then he hasn't really put it together since then. And I actually mistake him on the Mets over under stuff. So let me get this clear while we're still in the early parts of the Mets conversation. They have moved down a little bit. I checked it earlier today, like this morning, and it was 90.5. It is actually 88.5 now. And again, that's not nothing. Like, it seems like, oh, it's still 88, 89, 90, whatever. What's the difference? That's a big difference, right? Like, Vegas moves in very specific manners for specific reasons. And they were also even odds with the Braves the last time I saw to win the NL East. Now it's Braves plus 120, Mets plus 195, Phillies plus 330, Marlins plus 1600, which is very low. Like, I feel like that could have been under plus 1,000. Like, the way this division is ramping up right now, there's a world where the Marlins are competing and aren't selling all their pieces like they were last year. Who the hell knows, right? 1,600 is kind of a lot, but whatever. So perhaps there is a little bit more panic going on, not just from Mets fans being skeptical and pessimist, but from the powers that be who create the odds and all that stuff. And it really leads to the conversation of this setup of the roster right now. The pitching, as Alec kind of touched on already, the injuries are already ramping up. The hitting, though, on paper could be good. That's what was said last year, too. And I keep harping on this because people are acting like this thing for the Mets this year, where they have high expectations, is this new thing that hasn't existed. We all just forgot that last year they were projected top 5 pitching staff, projected top 5 offense, and we're not close to either. Right. So this expectation thing in Queens for the Mets is not new. It's just a little bit more in our face this year because the moves made more sense. And I think that's something that's very fair. It's reasonable to be very pleased with their offseason, to really like what they were about, the moves that were made. You can like the players that were brought in, but this is not a chalk it up 95 win team. And now circling back to that is Las Vegas and the odds makers telling us straight up, that's the truth. They're an 88.5 win over under now, and they could win 86 and 87, 88 and make the playoffs. And like Alex said, the division is strong. They can beat up on each other. Maybe this division has 3 playoff teams. Maybe it just has 1 because the division winner wins it with 88. Those are all things that are possible. So, Andrew, let's go into some of the stuff specifically here on the rotation. From a depth standpoint, you start talking about Taylor McGill and David Peterson, who are going to round out this rotation first and foremost when injuries happen. Is there enough reason to believe in Scherzer despite the hamstring? Is there a reason to believe in DeGrom and or the guys on the back end who will be filling it in to say this pitching staff can at least hold water until some health flips onto the positive side?
Well, you forgot to mention probably their biggest offseason acquisition, Chris Bassett. So and he was probably the ace of one of the co-aces of the staff for the Oakland A's last year. And again, he was brought in to be that strong number 3 starter, and again now he's gonna be that number 2 starter for the Mets, and I think he can absolutely do it. And again, the depth again, when you bring in the Scherzer and you bring in the Bassett, again, you're not relying on your 7th, 8th, and 9th starters immediately. Again, McGill and Peterson those are nice depth pieces. And again, they're there to round out the rotation. If Scherzer and Bassett weren't there, they'd be like plugged in, like guys we have to depend on to get us through. So again, they still have the depth, and we'll see if they can withstand any more injuries. But the quality of depth that the Mets have is probably top 3 in the National League. So you got to feel good, that you can lose a Jacob deGrom and still feel like you have someone in Scherzer and Bassett going in there that can give you not only just innings in general, but quality front of the rotation type of innings. So again, you never want to lose Jacob deGrom, and it's never a good thing that he's going to miss probably a half a season or more. But if he comes back in August and September and he's the Jacob deGrom of old, then then the Mets and they can weather the storm and make a playoff push then, and make another couple of additions at the trade deadline. You can weather the storm, but again, the injuries can't continue to pile on top of each other, and the offense can't go into some kind of 3-4 week slump where they looked absolutely lifeless, and they were constantly losing 3-1 games every single night. So you take the good with the bad.
And the Bassett thing is interesting because I know when we had this conversation when they first made the move, yes, he was an all-star. Yes, he was very good last year. We were having the debate of how do you grade somebody who's this, quote, awesome number 3 when in reality, there's a good, reasonable chance he has to be a number one for a portion of this season, right? Like if Scherzer's going to be relatively healthy to start, maybe he's not the number one, but just assuming, Scherzer might miss a few weeks to start or a few weeks early in the season, DeGrom's still not back yet. Alec, how does that change the Chris Bassett experience? That he's this apparent great number three, but he's not number one, but now he is. So is he still great or are you questionable?
I mean, I talked about this in the last time we talked about it. Was I don't really believe in the 1 through 5s, right? I think that everyone goes out there with pride and wants to do things. I don't understand why people are acting like Chris Bassett is an ace. He had a good year last year. It was like undeniably a good year. It wasn't a spectacular year. It wasn't like out of nowhere Lance Lynn having like a 2 ERA or anything like that. He had a good year, like a 3.3 or 3.4 ERA, but he was also in the worst, arguably the worst division in baseball. The AOS sucks. They had the Astros and they had nobody else. And you could say, oh, they have the Angels with Mike Trout and Ohtani. Mike Trout was out the entire year last year, right? So then you had the Angels with just Ohtani. So I don't know. I think it's the same thing as when you see, to a degree, and I'm not just saying that for Bassett. I think Minaya is going to struggle when he gets out of there too. Just what happens there. So I guess it's important that he steps up every day, every time that he goes on the mound, regardless of if there's a DeGrom or a Scherzer out there, especially when you're in a division like that. The AL East and the NL East are, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, the two best divisions in baseball. And you're probably going to have three people out of three, maybe four people with the expanded playoffs going into the playoffs out of those divisions. So.
Andrew, any thoughts on that? Because if now we'll move towards the hitters.
No, and I get it. Like again, people coming out of Oakland. Oakland is a gigantic pitcher's ballpark, and they have all that foul territory there. That it definitely helps out their pitchers. So that's one thing to be considered. But he's had great stats, great numbers going back to 2019, 2018. So he's been a consistently above average pitcher for that. And again, going to a different division and pitching to different hitters that he's never seen before. I think that's a slight advantage to the pitcher at first before the hitters could see him over and over again. But once the hitters make the adjustments to him, it's about whether he can make those adjustments to the hitters' adjustments and that kind of back and forth and see if he has the actual pitching acumen to be able to, get those type of hitters out over and over again.
Yeah. And on the pitching health front in general here, talking back to the Scherzer DeGrom conversation, these are two guys who have been two of the best pitchers in baseball. It's well documented. We all know this. Max Scherzer, Alec, jokingly called him 50,000 years old or whatever. He is going to be 37. And this is what is worrisome to me. It's not that he won't be effective when he's out there, but he had a 6-year run of 200 plus innings pitched from, 2013 through 2018. 2019 down to 172, 27 starts. It's still good. It's just not Scherzer level. Then he had the COVID years. No one had that many innings pitched, but he was healthy for that year mostly. And then that year he was 179 innings total. Again, not bad, but not 200 plus. Jacob DeGrom was injured last year. He's injured again, right? Like, where do you hit the breaking point on guys like this who, throw the ball so hard? They're in their 30s. Is it a bad bet? Is it a bad bet to put these two guys up front and say, this is it? This is our trip to the World Series. We're going to ride these guys all the way, when now we're starting the year thinking, when's Jacob DeGrom coming back? Ooh, Scherzer's got a nagging injury already. Like, is it the end of the road here, Alec? Like, is it the final run for these two stud pitchers, GOAT level pitchers for this generation?
I'll defer to Andrew when it comes to the DeGrom thing because he knows more about the injury. But I think that if the Dodgers don't want to re-sign somebody, there's probably a reason for it. The Dodgers don't care how they spend their money. It's been very, very clear. They didn't want to re-sign Kenley Jansen, right? And they made a weird trade for Craig Kimbrell, who made the same amount of money as Kenley Jansen. So if the Dodgers aren't re-signing someone, there's probably something that's up there. I think that it's probably pretty likely that Scherzer's at the end of his career, just by the nature of how old he is. He's not the type of pitcher that is going to do a Jamie Moyer or something like that, in my opinion. He's going to pitch until he's 50 years old. So I don't know about DeGrom. You'd hate to see it. Who doesn't love watching DeGrom pitch? But I don't know. I would defer to Drew in regards to that injury because he would know better than I do.
Yeah, it's there was nothing structurally wrong with DeGrom's shoulder. It just seems to something with the bone. I mean, obviously anything with your shoulder is not good, and it's not thoracic outlet syndrome, which is like the death knell for most pitchers. So again, you never want your shoulder to be hurt, but again, you're gonna give it rest and then reevaluate him in 4 weeks and see if if he's feels better enough or they're more confident enough in him holding up and seeing if he can go. But going back to your other point about like the 200 innings. But I honestly, this might be the first year ever that we don't even see a 200 inning pitcher in baseball, and I think that's going to be a crazy thing. And I think if Scherzer can give you 160, 170, 180 innings, I think you take that to the bank and you go. Again, he's 37 years old, but that's okay. That's okay to get that lesser amount. That's still 180 innings of elite baseball. And the same thing from Bassett. If Bassett can give you 160 innings, that you take it absolutely. And whatever DeGrom can give you afterwards, and as long as him and Scherzer are healthy for going into the playoffs, and with the expanded playoffs, gives the Mets an even better chance to actually make it. They're the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball, and I'll still say that. There's nobody else I would want pitching game 1 and game 2. Outside of like maybe Garrett Cole, switch him out for Scherzer. But like those are the three best pitchers in baseball. So you got to feel good if they're healthy going into a playoff series, going into a short series. Those are the guys you absolutely want on the mound.
Yeah, and it's another good point by you because I mentioned that innings thing, maybe with not enough context. It was just something I saw as a trend on his baseball reference page. He also had his best ERA of his career last year.
Yeah.
Right, so maybe he's old, maybe he's got a hamstring, maybe he's still at the top of his game, right? There's very, very possible. I don't want to be completely negative Nancy here and say that there's no chance that these two guys aren't studs again this year because there's a great chance that they are. There is just reason to have some pause, but history would show that Scherzer still got juice, right? Like he didn't fall off at all last year. He had his best year of his career practically, give or take some metrics here and there, but one of his best of his career at age 36. So, and one, made some playoff moves as well. So that's pretty good there on the pitching front. Let's move to the bullpen super quick since we already touched on the starting rotation here. Edwin Diaz still back as the closer for now, which is a good thing, I guess, right? Because he had a good year last year and he's supposed to be a good closer. He was only really bad the year before that. We just picked up the lefty. The Yankees and Mets made a trade, right? Is that right? How about that? What is that? Before we get into it, what's that about?
2004.
Chad Green. That was was it Chad Green or was it Luis Sessa?
No, that last trade they made was it was Mike Stanton for Felix Heredia, 2004.
Mike Stanton, holy, not that Mike.
Not
Stanton.
Giancarlo Stanton, Mike Stanton.
Not Giancarlo Mike Stanton.
No.
Just Giancarlo. No,
lefty Mike Stanton out of the bullpen.
Right. Yeah, no, I got it. That's kind of interesting. Miguel Castro, who we'll talk about when we get to the Yankees, like crazy good stuff. Not always the best pitcher, but he's got something. He's pretty good. We'll talk about him later. Jolie Rodriguez is the guy who came back for
the Mets needed another lefty pitcher aside from Chase and Shreve in the bullpen. So like it just made sense. And the Yankees really like to target those, guys that can throw the bowling ball type singers and get ground balls. And with their better defense now on the infield, at least in shortstop and up the middle, now that Gleyber Torres is playing second base, it makes sense for them to get more ground ball type pitchers. It's just, Castro is just very wild at times. And, but again, he's like the sixth or seventh option out of the pen for them. So they'll pick their spots with Castro anyway. So, and Jolie Rodriguez is he's pretty underrated. He strikes out a ton of guys. The Yankees seem to get his walk issue under control, but again, let's see if that's not a Yankees magic thing. And maybe let's see if the Mets can able to keep him on track as well.
Mm-hmm. So some of the names we got to go through here. I already mentioned Diaz and I mentioned Jolie Rodriguez. Seth Lugo returned is a guy who should pitch a lot and pretty well. Adam Days around. I got a couple other guys here. Bullpen, not a big strength here for the Mets this year. I wouldn't say it's a trash bullpen, but it's average. And what makes me nervous is with the injuries of the starters, they'll probably be relying more on this pen. So, Alec, what are you feeling with this Mets bullpen? Edwin Diaz, another good year. Ottavino shows up in New York back on the other side. Do they have some juice for this pen?
All those guys were relatively successful for the Yankees at certain points in their careers. So I don't know. But I mean, Diaz was great last year. You can't really doubt that. I'm hopeful that he continues to do it. Who else? Who's their setup guy right now? Is it Trevor May?
Yeah, Trevor May. I'm sure it'll be a little bit maneuvered, but yeah.
I mean, Buck Showalter, I know, is famous for his Zach Britton situation that he had. I'm hearing myself on the thing.
You're good. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, yeah. He's famous for the Zach Britton situation, obviously, but throughout his career, he's been pretty good with a bullpen. And you got to hope that he'll do a better job than has been done in the past couple of years over there. So, I mean, they didn't have an issue with the bullpen for the most part last year. It was their offense, right? It was just it was getting the leads for them to take in once they were able to hold it down when they handed the ball over to him. So, feeling good about him. I mean, it's not like a top end bullpen in baseball, but it's definitely one that'll get you there if you get the ball into the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings with the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And, Seth Lugo, he was hurt a lot last year too. So if you have a full year, and Seth Lugo was before, what's his name, ran him into the ground by pitching him every other day, ran him into the ground and he was hurt all last year, but he was probably their best reliever for like the last 2-3 years. So, getting him back, and if he's healthy and, he could definitely be the 1A to Diaz. And, Diaz finally, my favorite podcast stat was took him like over 2.5 years as a Met to get saves on back-to-back days. But he said the weight has been lifted off his shoulders. The bugaboo is gone. So maybe Edwin Diaz will finally, fit in and continue to be successful here. But Trevor May and, Ottavino and Lugo and Rodriguez, those are pretty competent guys to have behind you in the pen. And obviously, if they need to, again, I'll keep harping on this. The Mets will actually go out and prove their team, unlike the Yankees. So, so you can feel confident if someone's struggling or someone gets hurt, they'll go out and replace them with someone pretty decent.
And Lugo, that's a good call out on Lugo. Lugo's that fireman guy that you want in the bullpen. You can put him in any situation and he'll thrive. He's awesome.
Yeah, he was always the guy, I guess 2 years ago, right? Maybe not the COVID year. It was the year before. It just felt like any game you turned on, he was in the game. He only pitched like 50 games or something like that. It felt like he pitched 150. It was insane.
Yeah.
But Ottavino, former Yankee, former Red Sox, weird situation going over there. He made a weird comment that I don't need him to be making to ruffle the feathers of Yankees fans and the Yankees in general, that he's in the real town in New York or something like that, and the real team trying to win in New York. I don't like that very much, but sure, be confident, be cool. What can the Mets fans expect out of Adam Ottavino?
To be a big butthurt baby. But that's about it. He'll be tough on righties. He'll be tough on righties, and you can't really, if he's got to face a lefty more than once or twice, then he'll get in trouble, and it could be wild. But if you have a couple of tough righties coming up in the lineup, Ottavino is probably the guy with the sweeping slider that you'll want in the game.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds about right. Big butthurt baby, good sweeping slider. So he's good, but he might be annoying occasionally. He's not on the Marcus Stroman level of annoying, right? We got rid of that guy.
No, he doesn't tweet, so he's good. He's
Alec waved his hand like, I want nothing to do with even talking about that guy.
I can't get him off my timeline. He still pops up on my timeline all the time. He's so annoying. And then he does stuff with Pitching Ninja all the time. And it's just, I just hate that guy. He's so whiny.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me regret following Pitching Ninja, and then because it's like oh, it's Marcus Stroman. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Where's he at now, Stroman?
Chicago.
Which one?
Cubs.
Cubs. There you go. Wow.
Perfect spot for me.
Him and Clint
like he was
Frazier
always
are going
meant
to
to
be
do.
buddies.
Oh my God, what a clubhouse that'll be! And they'll just talk about how much they hate the Yankees
Yeah.
organization their entire time there, and then they'll be fading into obscurity. Clint Frazier will not be. Well, I guess he has to be on the team that whole year because the Cubs have nobody else that to field the team. So I guess he'll stay there for 500 at bats.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let's move on to the hitting part of the Mets conversation. Subway Sports Dog, Pete Kennedy, Alec Argento, Andrew Calagna hitting in New York with the Mets here. Well, let's start off with some bad news. So maybe we could turn to some good news. Brandon Nimmo, cortisone shot before opening day. Not what you want to hear. A guy who just lives on base, one of the better table setters, if you will, in the league. He was hurt last year. He's hurt again before the season even started. However, they do have some players here on offense. Now, if Nimmo is ready for opening day or not, he does slot in to be that leadoff guy. The Starling Marte ad is a big one, top of the lineup. We know Lindor will be there. Pete Alonso will be there. And then it starts to get kind of interesting, in my opinion, because guys who have been kind of in and out of the trading block, Jeff McNeil, JD Davis, Dom Smith, we don't know where they're going to be playing all the time, if they're going to be playing all the time. Eduardo Escobar was brought in, as well as Marcana. So there's players here. There's lineups here. You guys know Buck Showalter a little bit more from just playing the Orioles when he was running that show over there. Is this a situation where it's going to feel like there's a different lineup every day? And is that a good thing? That's kind of my question to start off with the hitting aspect of the Mets, because Dom Smith has to get at bats, right? Like McNeil has to get at bats. Is Robinson Cano going to be DHing like 3 times a week? Like, I don't know exactly what's going to break out for this lineup. So I don't know where you guys want to take that. Can Buck handle it? And is this the right group of guys to have a successful lineup and perhaps a deep lineup, if you will?
Well, I'll definitely say that, like, whenever Buck did a good job of putting the right guys out there for the right situations. And I think that's one of his biggest strengths as a manager, is putting guys in the best position to succeed. So whether it's the right matchup, whether Buck can, he interprets the data, very well. So I would expect to see JD in there a lot. I would expect to see Dom Smith in there. Be able to swap guys in and out, and that's the point of having a pretty deep bench with those guys. Again, JD Davis was your starting third baseman / outfielder last year. Now he's more of a utility guy, and he can plug in and just be put in the best position to succeed. And again, Marcana is not a number 3 hitter, but he's a damn good number 5, 6, 7 hitter to go in that lineup. So again, he was super underrated. He hit really well in a terrible hitters ballpark in Oakland, and he's been super underrated ever since he's been in Oakland. So you can feel very, very happy about McNeil, him, and even Eduardo Escobar being at the bottom of that lineup and giving depth to the lineup and getting on base and setting the table for the Martes, the Lindors, and the Alonsos. So the lineup depth is very good. And I'm excited to see Dom Smith go out there and be a DH and get the at bats that he was sorely missing the last couple of years. That he was forced to play the outfield or play first base, and then you had Pete on the bench. So it was finally, even though he had a lot of success in 2020. Being able to make sure that he pencils in for 400, 500 bats this year, I think that's a great thing. Hopefully they don't trade him for depth or for starting pitching like we were talking about before. But I think give him the ability to go out there and prove it, I think he will.
I think based off what I'm seeing here on DraftKings, Pete Alonso has the second highest over/under for home runs this year at 41.5, only behind Vlad Guerrero Jr. So they're looking maybe for another rookie type campaign for Pete Alonso. Not that he was bad last year, but he was not living up to the expectations that we all had for him. What do you think about from this lineup's breakout? I know we talked about Canna being in that 5 through 7 range. Eduardo Escobar is another guy. Like, is he going to be playing every day? Where does he fit into the lineup? But more importantly, at the top, assuming Nimmo's healthy, is the best iteration of this lineup Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso? Is Marte the right guy in the 2-hole? Alec, take that wherever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old school guy. I'd like to see my speed guy be at number one if I can. Marte is an excellent table setter. He's an awesome 1 or 2 guy. So I'd be fine with either of those. I think you probably get a lot more Jeff McNeil than you're anticipating this year. I think last year was kind of an outlier. I think he's a good on base guy himself. Yeah, and he's gonna the bench depth that you have. He's going to go all around the infield and the outfield too. He can play a little outfield too, right? If I'm not mistaken. But with Buck too, he looks like you said, he looks at the data but he also he uses the gut check too, which is what you want to see. So he's going to ride the hot hand. He's not going to take guys out. Again, I know he's famous for the Zach Britton situation now, but he's going to put the right guys in at the right time and not make these head scratching binder decisions like a lot of teams are accustomed to these days. So your question was, what does the best top of the order look like right now? Is that what you were getting at? Yeah. I think you're fine putting either Marte at 1 or 2, and I think you live with either of those and you'd be happy with it, right? I think Lindor he's got to be your 3, right? Because then you're gonna have Pete as your 4. I think it all kind of rides on Lindor there, whether you're going to be a successful team or not, because you have so much invested into him and he's not going anywhere. And if he just continues the trajectory that he's had the past 2 years, then it's going to be a tough time. But if everything's riding right, you can lose a Brandon Nimmo. And I know it's a big hit, but like you have the bench depth to absorb that. And you can put in, like, I think Jeff McNeil would slide in fine with the way that there's protection in that lineup right now. You could be totally fine.
Yeah, and I would personally like to see the Mets go out and actually get another power hitter to hit by, because again, outside of Alonso, like their next their biggest power hitter after that is Lindor and Escobar, and those are guys who are gonna hit in the low 20s, mid 20s home run. So if there's one thing I would wish that the lineup would improve on, is probably get somebody with a little more power in there to protect Pete Alonso. Because again, you're really banking on Lindor to kind of being the guy. Because if Lindor's not that guy, then you have Pete there, and then you have no one really there to, protect Pete in the 4 spot there. Maybe Mark Canha, maybe, I'm not sure if Robinson Cano is really a middle of the order hitter anymore, but, I guess we'll wait and see. But, that'd be the one thing I will say, that the team lacks a little power behind Pete. But again, if Lindor is that number 3 guy, and he's healthy and he hits like the Francisco Lindor of old, then I don't foresee the offense having, too many issues.
Do we anticipate Robinson Cano actually being their DH for the rest of the year? From my understanding, that guy's just kind of on the roster and until he's not, and letting that contract ride through, because you have better options. I mean, Dom Smith, if given the playing time, and if he can get, I think that's always been his problem, right? Is that he hasn't had the playing time. So he's a power hitter. He can yank a couple over the fence for sure. I think the answer is right in front of you if you just make room for him now that you have a DH that you can plug people in. And then they can do what the Yankees plan on doing, which is just shuffling people around, giving people those off days. And you have a bunch of utility guys that are starting caliber people that you can put all over the place and just shift people around. So I think the answer is Dom Smith to get some power into that lineup, and you don't have to. It doesn't cost anything, because at a certain point you can't just trade for everyone when you lose all the pieces that you've done for trading for everyone. So I don't know. I think your best bet is putting Dom Smith in that lineup as much as you can.
100%.
I can't argue with that.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you just said Dom Smith played 140 games, right? 140. Reasonably high amount. Would you be shocked if he had 32 home runs?
No.
Right?
I'd expect it.
That's what you would really set as the target for him in that regard. But, I guess that's like the anti Buck Showalter mindset, where I'm still thinking of the Metsing all the time. And like Buck isn't really that guy, right? Like, he's not Luis Rojas. Like, he's not a puppet either, right? So Buck's going to do what's best for the team, we assume. and that's not going to be riding Robinson Cano, even though the last time we saw him on the juice or not was hitting damn well. The more I think about the offense here, the power thing concerns me a little bit, Alec. I think that was a really, really sound point. But the versatility here, the multi-position defenders and starting caliber hitters, there's real depth here. And last year when the Mets got off to a decent start, riding the likes of Pilar and Villar and Luis Guillorme, who's still on the squad this year, that was fake depth. That was luck and just playing hard and letting things fall in the right manner, and then everything hit the fan. I think they have real depth this year. And like you said before, Alec, if Nimmo goes out to start the year, they can really handle that and allow themselves to see Dom Smith and JD Davis and Escobar all in the lineup, right? And McNeil and Kana, whoever it may be, to get that starting role. They're going to see it and they're going to have real options. And then as they get healthier, hopefully they find the best versions of themselves for a day in, day out basis, and then use those half days, which I always envied so much for American League teams, and hearing the Yankee lineup every day when, Giancarlo's off today. He's played all these games in a row. Judge is going to play DH today, and we're going to put someone else in to start in the outfield. Like, what a beautiful thing that the Mets and the National League teams get to do. Very excited about it. So now let's start wrapping on our Met stuff here, make some of our final picks and our last couple of categories. Let's start off with the one I mentioned to you guys before we started recording. Which of these Mets, and we've kind of touched on it already possibly, which of these Mets is most likely to not finish the year as a Met? So who's the biggest trade chip the Mets have right now that you expect to be dealt?
Is it most likely to not be on the team, or is it trade chip? Because I think that those are two different. Because I don't think Robinson Cano is going to be on this team by the end of the year. I think that if they need to make room for someone, he's the odd man out. He doesn't bring the value that he needs at that price tag or at that position or anything like that. And, you can get a better DH than him if that's all it is.
Fair. Okay, so let's not do that. Let's do let's do this one. Who is the most likely trade chip or the best trade chip the Mets have going into the season?
That's on the roster, or are you talking like minor leaguers?
If you have a minor leaguer in your back pocket, Andrew, all power to you, but I was thinking on the roster.
I could honestly see James McCann getting dealt, because again, the Mets' top prospect is Pedro Alvarez, and again, if he's hitting great, and they can call him up, I mean, he could be a spark in the lineup if they need it. Then McCann, he's the world's most expensive backup, so they could do theoretically. Trade him for a team that's in need of catching up. Maybe they'll trade him to the Yankees, because the Yankees don't have a starting caliber catcher whatsoever. So I see, Alec. I see you looking at me. But the Yankees don't have a quality starting catcher or starting caliber catcher right now currently on the roster. So maybe they'll do him to the Yankees.
All right, Alec. Anybody?
Well, I'm just not going to let him disparage the home run leader in spring training, Kyle Higashioka, right now. But I'm sorry, continue with your question.
Who's the biggest trade chip for the Mets on the roster right now?
I mean, unfortunately, I think it's Dom Smith. I don't think they agree with me. I think that clearly they're trying to shop him, but I don't think that's the answer. Especially that Padres package. I think it made a lot more sense for the Padres than it did for them.
Right. Yeah, I would hate to see Dom Smith go before he ever really hits stride as a Met. That would suck. I agree, though. Unfortunately, it's him. I think the JD Davis thing is interesting. He could be a chip as well, but really, are you going to truly upgrade by trading JD Davis, or are you just going to spin the tires and get someone at best like him?
He's not going to add the value. He's not going to be a good trade chip. That's the whole thing.
Right.
He's not going to net you anything.
He's more valuable to the Mets than he is to anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Than anything that they could possibly get in a trade. So, you're better off holding on to him. It's the Miguel Andujar syndrome. He was better, more valuable to the Yankees even 2019, 2020, 2021 than he was, than what they could have possibly gotten in a trade, and they'll hold on to him until he basically has no value, which Miguel Andujar has now currently.
All right,
Comeback season.
And do hard comeback season. You heard it here first. On to the X Factor, the non-star X Factor. I'll make a decision to say that. No. Yes. Okay. Ready? Alonso out. Lindor out. DeGrom, Scherzer out. Those are the big four names, if you will, of the Mets. Who's the other X Factor? The guy who has to play well for the Mets to hit their stride and be their best selves this year. Who's their X Factor?
Starling Marte. That's pretty conceivable. Again, he was their big signing. I think their biggest signing over the winter. Again, if he's that dynamic guy at the top of the lineup that's stealing 30+ bags and getting on base a ton and playing a lead defense in the outfield, I think you need that. Absolutely need that spark plug, especially if Nimmo's going to be out. He's got to be your leadoff guy then at that point. So my pick's Marte.
Mets fans are going to fall in love with Marte. You're going to get shades of Reyes in his prime all over again with Marte. Well, you took pretty much everyone off the board, but I guess I'm going to go back with Jeff McNeil again, since I mean Lindor is my real answer there, and I don't think he's a lock or anything like that.
Right,
so
that's why I hesitated there.
Yeah, I would like to go with Lindor, but I think McNeil is a really, really good player. I know, actually, fun fact, I got a ton of crap like 4 years ago for saying he was a good average hitter, and somebody on the podcast complained that I said he was an average hitter, and it was a whole big hullabaloo about that. You don't remember that, Pete? But yeah, I think no, it was a commentator or something like that. Someone
yes.
Hopefully they're still listening, but I think McNeil is going to have to. He had a down year, but he's historically been very, very good for the Mets. And you're going to need him to fill in holes all over the field and in the lineup. And he's your guy, especially if Nimmo's out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I can't hate that pick either. It's between those two.
Yeah, that was why I was torn on leaving Lindor in or out. I just felt like if I left him in the conversation, we all would have picked him because he needs to play well, but he's also such a big name star player that he's not allowed to be picked for this.
Can I pose a question?
Yeah.
What do you do if Lindor has another crappy year, if he continues this last 2 season skids as the Mets? What do you do? You're locked into him for what, another 7 years, 6 years, something like that? He's got a huge salary. You can't move him. Is it easy? Like, do you live with him? I know his defense keeps him on the field, of course, at that point, but like, no. Yeah. Do you try to actively move him for someone else? I mean,
who are you gonna get for him if Lindor's not hitting?
Hey, if you can move Eric Hosmer, who's a worse contract, you can move Lindor. There's no, as I've learned over the past couple of years in sports, there's no contract that you can't move. It's not the way sports work. And you can eat salary, and they don't care if they eat salary or something like that, right? That's what baseball. That's the luxury of baseball, is that you could just trade him and take on all their salary and just have someone else play him. So I don't know. Right. If he has another bad year, that's a really weird situation you have for the Mets.
Are we talking?
I don't know if you go ahead. I don't know if you pull the plug on him just yet, but I think that I don't think he's your number 3 hitter going into the season anymore. If he struggles again this year, then I think you bat him in the lower part of the lineup and then see if he can rebound that way. But again, I don't think, because he signed a 10-year deal last year, so he's got 8 years after this year. So you could move him, but I think you probably give it another year or two at him batting in the lower part of the lineup rather than going into the season depending on him being your 3 hitter.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. He's also 27 this year. It's not like he's 34 already. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like it's not.
I don't think it's unfair to bring it up, though. I mean, he's had a downward trajectory. I think that's totally reasonable to say something like that. And 27, it's like you should be hitting your prime. He should be, So if this year, if he doesn't hit well, that's a big concern.
100%. Then it's a trend, not a blip. It's like a real thing.
Definitely.
And are we talking him batting 212 with no power versus 240 with 26 home runs? Like, that's a big difference, and still probably both bad years in his caliber.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's something to watch. I mean, I love Frankie Lindor. I've loved him his entire career. I've always wanted him to be a Yankee, but like, it's just an interesting thing you'd have to watch this year as a Met fan.
100%. And as soon as you asked the question, my face was like, don't say it. It can't be true, right?
Don't
Like, I
put the
don't want it to
juju
be
out
true.
into the universe, man.
It's
Don't
so
put that
hard
out
to,
there.
right? Even as a Mets fan, like, it's so hard to truly wrap your arms around him yet because he hasn't done anything. But we all know what he can be and should be. So we're hopeful.
Yeah, but the fan base will turn on him too real hard this year if he's bad. I mean, then you're screwed.
I know. And that's where I'm too easygoing as a fan is like, I'm not going to turn on this year until it's like truly, truly bad. Like Julius Randle is an example. It hit a point of the season where like, all right, guys, come on, calm down. The whole team's not playing well. It's not just him. And then it was like, wow, his energy seems weird. He's not doing this, not doing that. Okay, now I get it, right? Like it takes more than him just having a bad month. It takes a multiple month stretch of bad play and him being negative and him not having fun playing baseball anymore. Because that's one of the things that we love about him so much is the energy, the smile, the playing the game the right way on offense, defense, running the bases, the whole nine, right? So if those things are bad, different story. If just some bad numbers, we have to roll with the punches and see what happens. My X factor, Dom Smith. I'm going with it. I've loved this guy for years now. I want to see him play all the time. I want to see him hit bombs. I want Pete and Dom to be in the lineup together all the time. Is that too much to ask? It should have been happening for 2 years now, and we've been stripped from it. So, hey, this is the year Dom Smith and Pete Alonso both go for 32 plus. That's what I'm saying here. But all right.
Wow.
88.5 plus 195. How we feeling about the Mets over under? Because we got to get to the Yankees. That was a little too long there, but 88.5 over under division plus 195. Alec, what do you think?
Under.
Mm.
I'm
And
thinking
obviously
an 87. I'm thinking 86, 87 win team. They're not winning the division. No
Okay.
shot.
And do you think that's a playoff
I think
team?
the Phillies are. Yeah, I mean, we'll have 30 teams make the playoffs this year, something like that. So, I think they make the playoffs. I don't think they're at the bottom of it. I don't think they're. That's a huge hit with this rotation right now, and those are not things that go away. None of the things that are going on right now are like, oh, okay, like his fingernail came off or something like that. Okay, that you had 2 weeks and you're good to go. These are all lingering issues, and then the DeGrom thing is you don't know what you're going to get out of him, if at all, this entire season.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Andrew,
it honestly, like my answer really depends on DeGrom. If DeGrom comes in 4 weeks and they say, "Oh, your shoulder looks great, he can ramp up, he'll be back in like 2-3 more weeks after he builds his arm up a little bit," then I'll give the Mets definitely go with the over and give him a very good chance to win the division. But if the DeGrom is missing half a season, which we're fearing to be, I'm probably in the same boat with Alec, and I take the under, but I probably give him like an 86, 87 win team. That'll still make the, probably the 5 or 6 seed in the playoffs. So they're definitely a playoff team. They have too much talent on the roster to not be a playoff team. Something, again, will have to go disastrously wrong. Those are the famous final words for Mets fans. So they'll have to go devastatingly wrong for them to miss the playoffs. But they have too much talent to not do it. So I'm fairly confident in them at least making the playoffs in the 86 to 88 win range.
I'm very excited that this is the first year we're all under on the Mets, which means they're definitely going over, baby. Under 88.5. I'm calling my shot. 88 on the dime. They're going to win 88 games. They're going to be solid this whole year. They're going to hit. They're going to be decent enough pitching. Edwin Diaz has another good year closing. I think it's a strong 88, like a confident 88, not like oh God, we were supposed to win 97 and we're supposed to win division. We're 6 games out and this is kind of ugly 88. It's going to be good, positive baseball in New York, in Queens for the Mets. We're all on the under, so take the over. That's what I have to say about that. Any last words on the New York Mets before we say goodbye?
No.
All right. Last thing, actually, gambling. Give me your 1, 2, 3 for the NL East.
I'll do Braves, Mets, Phillies.
Braves, Mets, Phillies is the best odds, plus 450 to get those 3 exactly correct. Alec, you said something about the Phillies before. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm living dangerously. Then I'm gonna go Phillies, Braves, Mets.
Plus 900 on that. That's kind of cool. You can bet on that on DraftKings. It's called the Division Straight Trifecta, and you can get the one. If you get the 1, 2, 3 right, it has the odds built in for all that stuff. If you go Mets, Braves, Phillies, which is the second highest odds, plus 500. Hey,
That is cool.
Throw a couple
for thought.
schmeckles down. Use
Hey,
that promo code.
just a couple schmeckles, promo code TBPN. How you doing? How you been? Let's talk